Hi everybody, Christina Dolinar, Janome Educator here, and today we are going to talk about yarn couching in the embroidery mode. For yarn couching, some accessories are standard and some are optional, so check with your dealer with respect to what accessories may come with your machine or other ones that you might invest in. But let's take a look at a few samples. And here is the start of a great yarn couching quilt. So we're couching down some yarn in the embroidery mode, and these are going to be a series of quilt blocks just to give that quilt that kind of chenille effect that many of us can remember, those old-fashioned quilts. Here is an otherwise boring black t-shirt, and we've just added a little bit of life and color and texture to it using yarn couching. And let's see how easy yarn couching can be. So, of course, to do yarn couching, you're going to need some yarn. Once again, experiment a little bit with the different yarns that you are using, the different yarns that you have around the house. They're all different thicknesses, different fluffiness, and see what yarn you like the best for the technique you're doing. For yarn couching in the embroidery mode, there are two different accessory feet. Now, for some of our Janomes, like the Janome Continental M17, these two yarn couching feet are standard with the CM17. Other models, it is optional, so check with your dealer for a yarn couching foot for your Janome embroidery machine. There are two different accessory feet because there are two different sizes of holes in the foot itself. And of course, the different size holes will allow it to accommodate different sizes of yarn. There are thread guides that are available, like this one that is standard with the Continental M17 that fits right on this thread mast, and that will help us guide our yarn to where it needs to be while we're doing the stitching. On a few of our other models, this is an accessory that is available that it fits right into where that second spool pin would fit in, and that will help guide the yarn to where it needs to be while you're stitching. There are also these yarn guides where two different sizes, once again, depending on the thickness of your yarn, and this attaches right to your needle screw, and that will help position that thread, once again, where it needs to be for stitching. So, I'm going to take this yarn guide off for a second, just so we can take a look at attaching the foot itself. Okay. So, what you're going to find is that if you lower the presser foot, it's just a little bit easier, for me at least, to attach this foot onto the machine. Tighten that screw. Use a screwdriver just to tighten it just a little bit. So when we go to thread the yarn into the foot for our embroidery, the first thing we want to do is make certain that the thread itself that we are using is through the hole in the foot. And if you just simply take the thread horizontally, slide it in there, and it's a tight fit to get that thread in there because the yarn needs to stay in there, the thread needs to stay in there. So you're pulling a little harder than you might expect, but it will get the thread and the yarn, as you'll see in a second, will get into the hole in the foot. So the thread is through the hole of the foot. Now let's take our yarn. And once again, it's going to be a tight fit. And if you just kind of keep your yarn horizontally and snuggle that in there, and there you go. So both the yarn and the thread is through the hole in the presser foot. So let's now go and select the design that we want to stitch out. On the Continental M17, collection number 27 are couching stitches. There are 3 pages, and you can use these arrows to arrow over and look at all of the designs that are available. And they are sorted according to the size of the hoop that is going to be used for that design. We'll go and select that circle that you saw on the black t-shirt. It says make sure that the proper presser foot is on. Now, once you are ready to do the yarn couching as an embroidery, on the Continental M17, this icon down here that looks like a presser foot, when you touch that, that allows you to let the machine know which embroidery foot you are actually using. We are using the larger hole, which is the PC2 foot, and so we'll select that. This will now limit the speed that the M17 will embroider out at. On our other models, in the set mode, where you have the wrench icon that allows you to go into the settings of your machine, that is where you will tell your Janome embroidery machine if you are using the PC1 or the PC2 embroidery foot. So we're ready to embroider. Let's now simply attach our embroidery hoop. This will click in. If you would like, you certainly can hold your thread tail and your yarn tail at the beginning. If you would like, you can also guide this yarn a little bit if you'd like also, or use the yarn guides that fit on that needle screw. So we'll touch the start stop button and watch it embroider. It's embroidering at a nice, steady, slow speed because you, of course, want that yarn to be caught in the stitching. And so that's why your Janome embroidery machine is limiting the speed at which it will embroider out. That was easy, wasn't it? It, of course, cuts your thread. You can now leave a little yarn tail here, and we'll cut that yarn. And now let's talk about what we're going to do with these yarn tails. You can do a couple things. You could simply just cut these yarn tails off. They're not going to go anywhere. You could also take a large eye needle and pull them through to the back side. Another fun thing to do, especially if you're embellishing a shirt or a denim jacket or something, is to slide some beads on here and create a little tassel-like effect on your projects. But this is now adding great texture to your projects, to everything that you're wearing and using in your house. So hopefully you'll give yarn couching, whether it is in the embroidery side of your Janome or on the free motion side of your Janome, please give it a try.